Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2005 direct-to-video prequel, Carlito's Way, Rise to Power. Now, I went into this with very low expectations because this is another cheap direct-to-video film that's just trying to cash in on a somewhat well-known franchise, and it was exactly what I thought it was gonna be. It was another forgettable, completely unnecessary cash grab. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, I would like to give a special shout out to Shine for requesting this video. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Carlito's Way Rise to Power is directed by a producer and Michael Bregman, who was one of the producers of the first film, along with his father. He directed another film called Table One prior to this, and then he did not direct a single film again after directing this movie. And you can see why. He's not a good director. He doesn't have an ounce or any iota of the same talent as Brian De Palma. Brian De Palma has more talent in his pinky nail than Bregman has as a director. Like, this man is just not very good. The direction in this is completely and totally unimpressive. It's I don't know. I don't even honestly think that it's even average or adequate. It's very much far below that. Anything involving a shootout is very flaccid and very lifeless. Anything involving any sort of drama or intensity falls totally flat. Uh, it looks like a very cheap film, which is what it ultimately is, but the direction does nothing to make it look like it's anything different. The performances he gets out of his cast are, for the most part, pretty inauthentic or bad, except for maybe a couple performers. And I don't think really their performance has anything to do with what the director was giving them in terms of advice. The shot selection is shit. The framing is a fail. Uh, there is basically just the bare minimum in terms of camera techniques that are employed in this. Nothing ambitious, nothing cool, nothing innovative, nothing dazzling, nothing dynamic. The direction is basically a whole bunch of nothing special. Now, the script by Michael Bregman isn't much better. It's loosely based on the 1975 novel Carlito's Way by Edwin Torres, which is kind of confusing because Carlito's Way is more based on the sequel novel called After Hours, and the prequel novel, the novel that came before it, is Carlito's Way. So this is closer to the original novel. Even the author has said that, but it doesn't make this script good because it doesn't really honestly feel like an actual prequel. You know what you're looking for maybe out of a Carlito's Way prequel is like, hey, how did David Kleinfeld and Carlito initially meet? Or what happened with Kleinfeld? How did he get into his job as an attorney? What's going on with Carlito and him being arrested and going to jail? Other than seeing a little bit of his former gang and seeing him get shot, which is something that was briefly mentioned in a line of dialogue in Carlito's Way about him being shot before. There's nothing that really connects this with Carlito's Way. So it doesn't really work as a prequel that much. It's just another story in the world of Carlito's Way, focusing on Carlito. And it just is nowhere near as involving or interesting or as compelling as the story of Carlito's Way. It deals with this formation of a small gang, uh, which is compromised out of Carlito, Earl, and Rocco. And they work together and start dealing drugs and start making a name for themselves on the streets. They wind up getting some enemies. They end up dealing with some pitfalls along the way, including some issues with some of their own members of the gang who start acting out of line. Carlito meets this woman, uh, Leticia, who he falls in love with. And that becomes a problem for Carlito because Leticia's brother is some guy who's pretty up there in the crime world, and that leads to some issues. And there's these cops who are also trying to squeeze the criminals, trying to get them to work for them. Uh, and there's also this tension between the blacks and the Puerto Ricans and the Italians and the African Americans in the community. Their gang is headed up by this guy named Hollywood Nicky, and there's something evolving. One of the guys from the Italian mob gets kidnapped by some of the former disgraced members of Carlito's gang, and he winds up surviving, but then it leads to a situation where Carlito has to steal from Hollywood Nicky in order to ensure his continued livelihood and him continuing to stay breathing because the Italian mob uh, is mad at him for losing $2 million. The 2 million because it was ransom money for the Italian mob boss's son, and it ultimately ends in a predictable double cross where Hollywood Nicky and his men and the Italians, they shoot each other, and then the police show up and arrest the Italians. And then you find out it was all a double cross. It was all something that Carlito set up with Hollywood Nicky and the cops to take the Italians out of the equation. And Carlito then goes with Leticia. Actually, he goes to a island in I think it's Bermuda actually. Yeah, he winds up going to the islands, and Carlito reunites with Leticia, and then it ends. And you're like, that was fucking pointless. What even happened here? A whole bunch of jack shit and not much of anything. I said it barely connects to Carlito's Way in any genuine capacity. I mean, there's even a hitman character who is named Nacho. I believe that's his character. Yeah, Nacho, which I mean, come on now. Nacho. Nacho Reyes. Like that is an incredibly lazy nickname. So Nacho is a hitman, and he doesn't show up until like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie. It's only an hour and 30 some minutes. And the character shows up. It's kind of an interesting character, but they do nothing with that character. So it's like anytime that this script stumbles upon something that could be interesting or could potentially lead to something, it just drops it or it pisses all over it and just is not able to even utilize it to its full potential. It's a pretty big time a failure of a script. Like, you want a script that brings the pain, here you go, because it doesn't really do much to really expand upon Carlito's character. There's still the narration that was in Carlito's Way, but this time around the dialogue is really bad in terms of the narration dialogue. It sounds even more cornball than the dialogue did in Carlito's Way. And honestly, the narration doesn't make as much sense. Like, why is there narration at this point? There was narration in Carlito's Way because it was his dying thoughts or his dying words. It didn't make any sense that you were trying to do that again with him just reminiscing from the exact time that things were happening. Like, it doesn't make any sense why there's even narration to begin with, other than it's Carlito's Way again. So we got to have a narration from Carlito. Um, like I said, there's nothing about Kleinfeld. There's nothing about Sasso. There's nothing about any of the other characters in Carlito's Way. Lelaine, there's nothing. You don't get any of that sort of stuff that could potentially connect it with Carlito's Way and give something to the fans of the first film in terms of some extra depth for some of the characters we didn't get to see the depth for previously. Or, extra, character stuff or anything. Like, it's just very completely devoid of anything substantial when it comes to character depth for key characters in Carlito's Way. It's like, what is even the point of this? You have another romance, but it's nowhere near as compelling as the romance between Carlito and Gail in Carlito's Way. Because Carlito and Leticia, you're like, really? Like, I thought the only person that was really his one true love was Gail. So it kind of undermines the first film in some ways too. Um, and that's not cool, especially if you're a fan of I keep saying first film because I keep saying this is a sequel, but it's not. It undermines the original, undermines the next film in this series. Which there didn't need to be a series period, because even if they did expand upon this other stuff that I'm talking about, I still don't think it would have added much because it's not needed. You don't need a Carlito's Way prequel. You don't need to know about Carlito's rise to power. Like, who cares? It's not needed. It's not necessary, especially if Al Pacino is not involved in any capacity. So yeah, this script sucks. It's not exciting, it's not fun, it's not thrilling. It is just an absolute bore fest, and it's also incredibly predictable, so that does not do the film or the script any favors. Um, it really is a big time fail. It really is. Now, the cast isn't much better. Like, Jay Hernandez as Carlito, like, no, he doesn't have anything close to the same amount of charisma as Al Pacino. He does not command the same screen presence, and he just spends the entire film doing a shitty impression of Al Pacino anyway, in terms of his line delivery. Like, why? Why are you trying to copy Al's cadence? Just stop. Just do your own thing. This is embarrassing. Almost as embarrassing as your shitty haircut throughout the movie. Mary Van Peebles, he's fine as Earl, but it's a nothing role. Michael Kelly as Rocco, eh. Sean Combs, yeah. P. Diddy, yeah. The Diddler as Nicky Hollywood. Um, Not a great performance. He also doesn't have much of a screen presence whatsoever. There's definitely no personality there. Very dull considering how supposedly cool this character was. Like, definitely didn't get that impression when it comes to P. Diddy's performance as this character. Um, Luis Guzman, it was nice to see him again, but it didn't make any sense that he was in this as some different character than Pachanga and in Carlito's Way. Jaclyn DeSantis, yeah, she was sexy, had some nice little spark. Didn't mind her performance. One of the better performers in this, along with Mario Van Peebles. And Burt Young, like, yeah, Burt Young is the mob boss. He did a good job. So did Giancarlo Esposito, is one of the cops who's who ultimately makes a deal with Carlito. Um, for the rest of the cast, nothing special and nothing great. The cinematography, that's definitely not great. Very flat, very bland, very boring. Nothing really that visually fun or interesting. The editing by David Ray, uh, very lackluster. It's a very lackluster job by David Ray when it comes to the editing. And the pacing, despite it being an hour and 30 something minutes, it's really slow because there's no genuine investment in the story, what little of it there is, let alone anything else involving the characters or anything that happens to these characters. It's a total bore. It's a snooze fest. It's hard to sit through because of the really low production values and some really bad performances, and the bad script and the equally as bad direction. So yeah, I mean, Rise to Power is easily one of the weakest sequels or spin-offs or prequels or anything of that sort when it comes to the crime drama genre. Honestly, I'll take any cut of Godfather 3 over this. Even the one that has Coppola's daughter in it stinking up the joint with her bad acting. Like, I'll take that over Carlito's Way, Rise to Power. Um, you might as well just watch a completely uh, blank TV screen for an hour and a half instead of sitting down and watching this, because that's basically what you get anyway if you decide to watch this film. Is you get nothing but a blank screen. There's nothing substantial. There's nothing really that good about this. Even the best things about it are just kind of average and adequate and just okay at best. And the rest is abysmal. The rest just sucks. And it's not the kind of bad that's bad in a fun way or bad in a memorable way. It's just bad in a very boring fashion. In all honesty, Carlito's Way Rise to Power is like a bootleg version of Carlito's Way uh, that you would find at the flea market. And it's got a different title, but it uses the same font as Carlito's Way. And it sounds similar enough that you might confuse somebody's grandmother or somebody into thinking that it's Carlito's Way. And then when they sit down to watch it, they're like, wow, this is definitely not Carlito's Way. So yeah, I would definitely skip this one. I definitely would. There's really not much entertainment value to be had from this. And another reason to skip it is because you don't have to watch P. Diddy try to act, which is pretty painful, but admittedly not as painful and as upsetting as his freak out parties probably are. But anyway, that's just my thoughts and my opinion and my review of Carlito's Way, Rise to Power. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.